session together. You've got these cards here. Should be everything you need, but also on the back, you've got space for any questions that you might want to be jotting down, some notes as well. And you should see on the screen behind us, there is Slido.com for the tech whizzes amongst us. I imagine most of us have got phones with us this morning. You are allowed to get them out. Exciting. Because if you just type in Slido.com onto a web browser and then enter that code in, that'll take you to the question platform that you can then be pinging your questions into us. So after Peter has spoken with us, opened up God's word, there'll be a chance to ask some questions and to go through that together. So do be coming along to this session with a questioning mind, wanting to explore what Peter will share with us. Peter, in a nutshell, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so my name is Peter Teagle. I'm married to Lynette, who's over there. And Sam, who's over there, is our older son. We have 2 daughters. And we moved to Bath just less than 2 years ago. And our ministry, our work is with international students with Friends International.
Fantastic. If you want to get to know Peter better, coffee and donuts await. But Peter,
yes.
Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah. Put the weapon away. Okay. Yeah, so normally we are at Oldfield Park, and it's really lovely to join you. I'm making no assumptions because I don't really know, which of you are guests or which of you are here for the first time or are regulars. So as I say, I'm not going to make any assumptions. One thing though, I have, this is shameless self-promotion, but I've written a book. I've brought 4 copies. They are free if you would really like them. They're actually written for international students, but people have said that they actually find it useful not only for their own exploration of faith, but also to find ways to answer friends' questions. So it's called, Is Christianity a Western Religion? And Other Questions That International Students Ask. Snappy title. So as I say, I've got 4 copies, and you're welcome to take them if you want to. I don't charge for signing them. No, okay. So when I was 16, I just finished my exams, O-levels. I was the last year to do O-levels, so anybody who talks about GCSEs, I know by definition they're younger than me. And my friends and I, 2 friends and I, decided that we were going to celebrate by going camping in the Lake District. We were going to do a bit of hiking, a lot of drinking, and we were going to work out how to smoke a pipe. And but what we didn't realize that we had accidentally camped next door to the biggest or oldest Christian convention, the Keswick Convention. And oh, this is a bit of feedback. Do you want me to swap to this mic? Carry on. We had nothing really to do with that, but one evening a couple came round and very nicely invited us to one of the evening meetings. And my 2 friends very politely said, no, thank you. And I, rather less politely, kind of rolled my eyes and said, no, thank you, or something to that effect. 1 year later, as a 17-year-old, I was camping again, this time at a Christian camp, and as a junior leader, I was telling 120 people the story of the fact that Jesus had completely changed my life. So what happened between those 2 camping trips, going from no way to telling people what Jesus had done? The thing is that initially, the reason I said no to that meeting in Keswick was because I thought I knew what Christianity was. I had grown up going to a church, not a church like this, a very traditional church with an old building and old music and old people, and mostly Scottish ladies called Margaret. I just thought there's nothing there. It's not real. I didn't think it was bad. I just didn't think it was true. And as a science student, I thought, well, that's the answer. Really, we've got science. We don't need faith. It just isn't real. Now, not long after this actually rather damp and somewhat miserable trip to Keswick, I started at sixth form college, and I found myself for the first time surrounded by Christian friends who are really Christians, people who really follow Jesus, who had a relationship and a kind of experience of God that I secretly had always wanted, I just didn't think was possible. And I quite quickly became known as quite an awkward atheist because I had all sorts of questions and they were terrible at answering them. But there was just something that my friends had that attracted me. And it's a long story, but it wasn't sort of sudden. It was a bit of a journey. But I discovered, to my surprise, the utter life-changing power of meeting Jesus. From thinking that he didn't exist, to thinking I knew what Christianity was all about, to being utterly transformed. And I said to someone, I've been a Christian for 36 years, and the reason I'm a Christian today is because I have seen again and again and again from people from all over the world the utter transformative power of Jesus in someone's life. Now, Jesus told many stories. We call them parables. And the two that you have on one side of your little yellow piece of paper, that you can look them up in the Bible too if you want the context. And they're some of the shortest stories or parables that Jesus told. And they are about a subject called the kingdom of heaven. I don't worry too much about the definition of that. Every time that Jesus went to define the kingdom of heaven, he told another story. But the kingdom of heaven is not just in the sky when you die. The definition is much bigger than that. It is about everything to do with living with God in his family. As people say, living your best life now. Well, this is living your best life not just now, but now and forever. Let's look at these two little stories. Here's the first one. It says, the kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy went and sold all he had and bought that field. So, if you can imagine somebody walking through a field, maybe he works there, his foot catches on something, and he looks down and sees a glint of gold shining in the sun. And so he digs down and he finds there, just beneath the surface of the soil, gold and silver, jewels and money, more treasure than he can possibly ever have imagined. So what should he do? Well, he can't just dig it up and walk away with it. You know, just as detectorists have certain rules that they can and cannot do. In those days, if you had treasure, the best thing to do with it was to hide it by burying it. There were no kind of safety deposit boxes. And there are certain rules or laws governing what you could do if you found it. And if the field belonged to him, he could have the treasure. So it was an easy choice. He went home. I don't know what he did. He sold maybe his home, his wife's pots and pans and his animals, and bought that field. It says in his joy he sold everything. So the treasure would be legally and rightfully his. Now, if you imagine seeing him do that, you don't know what's in the field. He's selling his home and his animals and his tools, and you think, what an idiot. What's so special about that field? Well, he's not an idiot because he knows exactly what he's getting. The second story is in a way similar, but it has a slightly different feel to it. It says, a kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he found one of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it. So here's a man who knows what he's looking for. He's a merchant, a trader who buys and sells things for profit. He's got an eye for high-value goods. And pearls were particularly precious in those days and rare. And he finds one that is so precious, so perfect, so big and beautiful that he knows it makes perfect business sense to invest everything he has in that one pearl, because that's going to set him up for life. Now, what is Jesus saying here? Well, one thing he's not saying, and I need to be clear about this, he's not saying that we can buy the treasure. He is not saying that we can somehow earn the treasure. But what he is saying is that there is something so precious, so amazing, so beautiful, so incredible, that it is easily worth more than the sum total of everything that we have in our lives. And also he's saying that if pursuing that means that somehow we have to sacrifice or we miss out on something else, what we gain is greater still. Now, when Lynette and I got married, nearly 31 years ago now, we stood at the front of a church and we exchanged promises, vows, as you do on your wedding day. And I promised her, I said to her, everything I have, I give to you. Everything I am, I give to you. Everything I have, I share with you. So think about that for a second. To a girl I'd met 3 years earlier, who was a student with me in Liverpool, from Singapore, I said, everything I am, I give to you. Everything I have, I share with you. Now, there were maybe 200 people there that day, and nobody said to me, oh, Peter, that was a bit extreme. You know, she's a nice girl, but really, everything, you know, is she really worth it? She didn't say that, but actually a year earlier somebody did say that to me. I was on campus and I bumped into an old school friend and she said, hey Peter, I haven't seen you since sixth form. What's going on in your life? What's new? And I said, well, hey, good news, I've just got engaged. And she spent the next 5 minutes telling me how stupid I was to throw my life away. But you know, we understand, don't we, that when a marriage is not joining an institution or an organization, it is promising yourself to a person. It is investing in a relationship all in. And you can be all in because you know that the person that you're marrying is all in with you. They are making the same promise to you. And when Christians talk about Jesus, hard as it is to imagine from the outside looking in, that is exactly what we're talking about. Not joining an institution or an organization or even a religion, but joining ourselves to somebody who utterly loves us and has given himself completely for us. There are some things which are too precious to buy. They're too precious to even offer to buy. And this gift that Jesus brings into our lives is the gift of peace that this world is desperate for, is looking for, but just cannot find. The gift involves an intimacy with God, where religions say, strive and try to get to God, and maybe at the end of this life, if you kind of do the right things, maybe if not in this life, then maybe several lives ahead, you might get to God. This is a gift which is available to the simplest person and the smallest child now. What Jesus offers us is a chance to be truly free inside. You know, even as an atheist, I knew, even as somebody who didn't believe in God at all, I knew that the real enemy in my life was me. I knew that there were things in my life, secret habits and an inner darkness, and that was what was going to stop me from true happiness. I knew it. I thought maybe I could grow out of things, but I knew that there was part of me that was actually quite dark, and I had no power over it. Now, I wonder if anyone has been in debt. Maybe a silly question with students in the room, but I was once in terrible debt, really way over my head. I was 9 years old. I went to the woods near my home, was playing with some friends, and one of them had this kind of Action Man, kind of army truck toy, and I loved it. And he said, well, if you like it so much, I'll sell it to you for £5. This is quite a long time ago. And I said, great, but I don't have £5. He said, that's okay, you can pay me back. So I thought, this is brilliant. So I went home with this thing. I thought, oh, that was easy. Maybe I could do that again. So I went to another friend's house and I saw something that he had and I offered to buy it for £5. I said, I'll pay you back. It happened 3 times in the space of 2 weeks. And it thinks I was a very strange child. And at the end of 2 weeks, I was in debt by £15. Now, I could get money by washing my dad's car, and he paid me 50 pence a time. And somewhere in my 9-year-old brain, I did the maths and realized I would have to wash Dad's car 30 times. And I knew that that was impossible. And I felt utterly, utterly trapped. I felt like there was this huge weight that was on me, and I had no idea what to do, and I daren't tell anyone. Then Mum found out. I don't know how, but I think mums have a special radar for the trouble that their kids get into. And she said, oh gosh, Peter, how much do you owe? I said, £15, £5 to each of these 3 boys. And she said, right, get in the car. So I got in the car and she drove me to each of these 3 boys' houses, and she made me stay in the car while she herself went to the door and then paid the £5 back in each case. I later discovered that £15 was her personal money for a month. So Mum and Dad were on a tight budget, and after all the bills were paid and the food was paid for, that was her kind of happy money for a month for her. And she spent it all on getting me out of trouble. And then she got back in the car and she said, Peter, doesn't it feel horrible to be in debt? Yes, Mum, it does. She said, I have paid your debt. Now don't do that again. And I felt free. I felt so free, like a weight had been lifted off. And I knew what my mum wanted for me was a change of behavior, and she got it. And for years, this for me has been a tiny, tiny illustration of what happened when Jesus died on the cross and rose again from the dead. He was paying a debt, not his own, but ours. The debt that Jesus paid is the debt that hangs around our necks that keeps us away from knowing God. My 3 silly mistakes already cost me far more than I could pay. And yet day by day, you and I go through life doing things, saying things, thinking things, watching things that drive us further and further and further away from God and away from other people. And that's what the Bible calls sin. And it comes in a million different forms. And that is what is tearing this world apart, and that is what's tearing some of us apart. Absolutely tearing us apart. The thing is that now anyone who comes to trust Jesus and comes to that point like I did when I went for a walk in a field and just got honest with God and told him the truth about what was really going on inside, he offers this incredible gift free. Now. A chance to live differently. A chance to live better than we did before. Not motivated by burden and obligation and trying to pay off an impossible debt to an angry God, but a love relationship with the one who gave himself completely for us to begin again. That's really living. Now, we work with international students from all different countries from all over the world. And a big part of my job is to stand and give talks like this to international student groups. And I'm very aware that many of the people who are listening are coming from cultures and countries and religious backgrounds where being a follower of Jesus is not simply frowned upon, but is incredibly dangerous. I may be asking them to do something that could cost them everything. And it's happened. So how dare I? How dare I tell people that they should follow Jesus when that's going to cost them maybe their relationship with their family, their nationality, their future? And as I say, it has happened. Why do I dare? Because I must. because I lay it out on the table what following Jesus really means. There are people in North Korean prison camps and kind of shipping container prisons in Eritrea and dozens of other countries where people are there, and if they only said, it's okay, I no longer believe in Jesus, they could leave tomorrow. But they've been there for decades because they know that they've already found the better thing, true freedom inside, which is infinitely better than anything else they've ever had. Now, actually, the context of the passage, I didn't say this before, is actually Jesus talking to mostly his followers. So if you look at Matthew 15, as Jesus has spoken to the crowds, lots of people, some of whom would believe, some who wouldn't. But here he's speaking to people who are already somewhat committed to him, and many of them would go on to give their lives or to be horribly persecuted or tortured for their faith. And he's helping them and us to see that it is by far the better thing to have Jesus. I'm not going to lie to you. Even in this country, being a follower of Jesus is not easy. It takes courage, doesn't it, to live in a way that is different and easily misunderstood from the people around us. It means really thinking every day how to live to please God, not just to please ourselves. If you want everyone to like you, to be popular, to live an easy life, don't follow Jesus. But if you want to know God, not just know about him, but really know him, even if we're kind of partway there or on that journey already, to really know him, to know him as a father, to know his voice speaking to us and his leading in direction. If you want to know forgiveness for those sort of things that you lie awake at night feeling utterly ashamed of, for those things that you know are there that nobody else does, that's utterly got you trapped. If you want freedom from those things, if you want to know what your purpose in life is and your true value, your individual true value in God's eyes, if you want to be an agent for good and for change in your family and your community and your place of work, if you want to be part of God's family, if you want to never have to fear the future. I have a degenerative bone condition. The future doesn't look particularly happy if I like sports. That's gone a long time ago. And my mobility is getting less every few months. But I'm not afraid of the future. There was once I had to write a goodbye letter to my family because I was going through an operation that I might not survive. But I wasn't afraid because I already had the treasure. I already had the better thing. So why bother with Jesus? Well, maybe you feel like you've caught a glimpse of a bit of gold shining in the sun. You've seen something, and you just don't know whether it's real, whether it's, or whether you know you found something real, but you just don't know how deep and how big it is. Can I encourage you to dig deeper, to linger, and to not walk away until you know what it is that you're walking away from? Jesus is the treasure. Ultimately, it's him. What more could we ask? I'm going to just be quiet for a minute or two and just to leave you to kind of reflect and maybe talk to God yourself. And then I'll just close in a very short prayer after that. So, Lord, I just want to pray for anyone who is on the fence, who is maybe afraid of what it might mean for them to wholeheartedly follow Jesus. There is no fence. We have the choice to follow him totally or not at all. But I pray that you'd give them the grace to see that, to see just what it means to follow you. And for all of us, I pray, Lord, that you would help us to have that phrase ringing in our hearts. In his joy, he went home and sold all he had. We give our lives again to you, knowing that you have given everything for us. Amen.